Yes, hello. It is the Matchbook Football Podcast, not the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm led to believe that it's Monday, but at this stage of the year, I think days of the week are an abstract concept. Anyway, I've got Mark O'Hare with me. On Boxing Day, Mark, or rather before Boxing Day, we had a chat about some games that caught your eye. And it was a successful Boxing Day. Could have been slightly better. Do you think? Happy with how it went? 2 winners out of 3.
Yeah, it's always harsh to when you feel harsh done by when a late goal goes against you. But I think that's been the way for me punting wise over the festive period. I've been very close to it.
It was the goal as well. It was Jordan Ayew's goal, the best goal of the season potential that cost us there.
Yeah, it's hard not to get too excited despite a wonder goal going in when it goes against you, really. But that's been the way, really, for me over the festive period at the moment. I've come very close to a few big wins, a few late goals, and a few surprise results going against you. But it's been difficult. I can imagine it's very difficult for the players, so we can't really complain. These guys having to play twice in the space of 48 hours or so, and I think we've seen that over the weekend just gone by with some very surprise results, particularly in the EFL, and plenty of goals too. So he's hoping for a bit more of excitement again on New Year's Day, because you've got to enjoy these moments. Quick turnarounds, hard work for us, but I'm sure it's much worse for the players, but fantastic for fans.
And we should point out the betting gods give and they take away. That the Ayew goal left us without Palace and West Ham coming in at under 2.5, but a late St Mirren goal got our St Mirren plus 2.25 goals on the Asian handicap up. So a mixed bag, but a good profitable day. And we're hoping for more of the same as we preview the New Year's Day football. Today, Mark's picked out 2 punts in the Premier League and a good thing in the EFL as well. Just before we get into, I suppose, the billboard fixture in the Premier League, which is Arsenal against Man United, Mark, you just mentioned the chaotic nature of some of the games in the last few days. As a punter, are you looking at overs goals bets maybe with a keener eye than usual? Are the bookies reacting to this, or the layers, are they reacting to this, or is that something we could exploit potentially?
I don't think the bookmakers will be responding to it massively. I think they've got their models and they'll stick to those models because that's what pays dividends. I think for us as punters, potentially there, I mean, it's probably something I didn't really consider enough going into the festive period, was the potential for goals to increase or decrease. We talked about in the last podcast about teams being capable of resting and rotating going into the festive period, and how that could pay dividends for them or not so if they weren't able to. And I think we've seen that in a few scenarios. We saw the strength of Leicester's second team really getting a victory at West Ham. All the strength conditioning and sort of sports science intelligence at these football clubs, particularly at the top, will tell you top class players can't play twice within 48 hours. We've seen plenty of teams now resting, rotating at the top, not so much at the bottom because those teams can't afford to do so. So I probably didn't consider the goals angle quite enough really going into the weekend, but I think Sunday's matches in the EFL really did kind of stand up and make a bit of a statement there. But potentially we should be looking towards backing goals in games where teams have had less rest than others. I know we mentioned Blackburn and their sort of hectic schedule on the last podcast, and they went and made 7 changes for that match where we probably expected them to be struggling. But I guess particularly further down the pyramid, that's where we should probably look towards a goal increase. I don't have stats to hand. I've never really looked at it too in depth really, but it does actually make sense when you look at it now. A quick turnaround. Clearly the legs are tired. If travel's involved as well, it just increases the pressure on those players.
Okay, let's see what you think about this game at the Emirates, 8 p.m. kickoff, Arsenal against Manchester United. And just looking at the odds on the Matchbook site, as we record, this is Monday the 30th in the morning, so subject to change, of course, before kickoff. Arsenal currently 2.72 and Manchester United 2.7, with the draw 3.75. So already looking like a pretty fascinating one. From both a betting perspective and from a neutral from watching the game. Arsenal plus 0, 1.98. Manchester United minus 0, 1.95. Over 3 goals, 2.07, and the under 1.83. So Arsenal under Mikel Arteta, but as a team with one Premier League in their last, with one Premier League win in their last 12 games, whereas Manchester United's form has picked up recently to the extent that they are now the closest challengers to Chelsea in 4th spot. What's caught your eye in this game, Mark, in terms of a punt?
Well, the odds have kind of flip-flopped a bit in the last 24 hours, really. There's been a move towards Manchester United and a move against Arsenal since that defeat to Chelsea, really. I'm not quite as confident now in this because I think the price might be getting chopped even before people get a chance to get on, really. But it was Manchester United plus a quarter goal on the Asian handicap. This game used to be top billing in the Premier League not so long ago, but now instead of Keane v Vieira, we're probably going to have Fred against Guendouzi on New Year's night, which isn't quite as exciting. I still expect it to be quite a good game. I expect a few goals, potentially the goals market somewhere to keep an eye on. Over 2 3/4 goals will be available at a very backable price. But I guess with Arsenal, I have seen improvements. I should say that I have seen decent improvements in their performances under Mikel Arteta. Only 2 games in, but they look a more rounded team. Made a few tweaks to the system, more terms of out of possession, really. Plenty of energy, hard work, aggression, much more compact without the ball. Traits probably should expect before he came in, really. Just the traditional hard-working stuff we've seen, really, especially with Everton. You saw how Everton picked up after Marco Silva's departure. But I do feel sympathy for their loss against Chelsea. I thought they played well for most part of that game. But if we're being really harsh, it was probably a game of 2 halves, and the pendulum swung against them when Jorginho came on for Chelsea. And should he really have been on the pitch to score that equaliser? Probably not. But they can feel hard done by. But I think there were positives in that performance. Ozil played well for an hour, or at least 45 minutes, and Aubameyang worked very hard from the left-hand side. But just again, it was very Arsenal in the way they lost that game. Poor decision-making in front of goal in good positions cost them, and then so did Bernd Leno, who's been probably their best performer, or one of their best performers over the past year as well. So the thing I really sort of took from that game was just the lack of confidence in that team, particularly when the equaliser went in. They didn't really look like getting back into the game. I know there was only 10, 15 minutes left of the match, but I guess that's not too surprising. You mentioned their recent run of results. So they've only actually won 3 of 18 Premier League games since mid-August, and they've failed to win at home in the Emirates in the Premier League since the 6th of October as well. Callum Chambers was injured quite badly in that game. He'll be missing. He's been one of their best defenders in this season alone. And yet also you look at their record against teams above them in the Premier League, just 1 win from 11. So I think it's quite hard to kind of really get them on side, even though the price is kind of getting bigger and bigger at the moment. Because like Arsenal have struggled against the leading lights, Manchester United certainly haven't. They've been very good operators when underdogs or taking on possession-heavy sides, which you expect Arsenal to be under Mikel Arteta. And I've seen a different side to United in the last sort of 2 weeks. Comfortable back-to-back wins against Burnley and Newcastle when they've been asked to take the initiative. Now 5 wins from 9, I think, with 1 defeat. If you exclude the bottom 3, if you exclude the bottom 6, United have won 7, drawn 5, and lost 2. And overall this season, I was quite surprised to learn they've only lost 5 of 20 Premier League games. So I think if you get them with a plus start, I think you're in a decent position to at least make a half-stakes profit. I mentioned their performances against the better teams. They're unbeaten against the top 8, unbeaten against the top 6 with 4 wins from 5. And I mentioned that win against Burnley and Newcastle, or the wins against those 2 teams. They were significant, not first because they kept their first clean sheet in 15 against Burnley, but also it showed them an ability to win games when they have been asked to take the initiative and gain possession. Before the Newcastle match on Boxing Day, they'd only won once in 17 when having more ball than their opposition. We saw their counter-attacking strengths work really well in the Manchester derby. Their work in transitions, I think they'll really come to the fore in this game, particularly if Pogba plays. Before Boxing Day, he created 14 chances from open play for United this season, which is the 6th most, despite playing only 467 minutes before Boxing Day. That equates to a chance every 34 minutes. And we've got Marcus Rashford in flying form and Martial available as well, where United's points per game and goals per game increase dramatically when he's available. I think they'll be in a very good position. I've
got quite a strong sort of image in my mind here of Arsenal losing the ball in Manchester United's sort of around their area, a counter-attack with Rashford, Martial, potentially Pogba kicking things off, a backpedaling David Luiz and Mustafi, who'll probably come in for Chambers. That's probably the first thing that I think of when I'm trying to think about what might happen in this game. So in general,
it's not just that, Ali, either. You think of the 2 fullbacks. We can pick holes in those 2 centre halves, but the fullbacks aren't fullbacks. They're playing out of position there as well. So we saw what United can do away at City. I don't expect them to be quite as good as that, obviously, but if they put together a performance anywhere close to that, I really worry about that Arsenal backline.
So the bet for the pod, based on what we understand, what we recognise are changing prices, what was it that you're going for? And maybe for viewers who might not watch until Tuesday or Wednesday morning, what would be the sort of cut-off point for you in terms of price?
Okay, well, the market at the moment hasn't matured enough to create this opportunity. But if you look at the high street, Manchester United plus 0.25 on the Asian handicap is available at 1.73. If that is available or down to 1.7, absolutely take it. If not, look towards Manchester United in the draw no bet or plus 0. I think you mentioned it was around 1.95 at the moment. I think that's very fair indeed. At the moment, I can't see enough reason to back Arsenal or get Arsenal on side. I'm happy to oppose them for the time being, especially in this sort of situation where you expect United to profit on the counter attack.
I feel like our relationship with Manchester United is really growing over the course of the season, and that's lovely to see. Let's talk about Saints and Spurs now. This one's a 3 p.m. kickoff on New Year's Day. Southampton, the home side, 3.44 as we talk, 2 days before the event, just over 48 hours before kickoff. Spurs, 2.24 in this one. The draw, 3.6. Tottenham with a quarter of a goal start available at 2.04, and Spurs minus a quarter of a goal, 1.89, with the goal line, well, over 2 3/4 goals, over 2.75 at 1.86, and the under 2.04. Saints and Spurs, Mark, Saints somewhat of a renaissance in the last few weeks. What about Tottenham, and what about this game has tickled your fancy?
It's goals, really, Ali. I think Southampton and goals have been a regular feature on the podcast, as well as my insights column with Matchbook. Since that Ralph Hasenhüttl arrived, the stats are really quite overwhelming, really. And I think we've got the perfect opportunity to get with goals here, because Spurs have also been great for goals-based bets this season. I think you mentioned the bet there, over 2 3/4 goals, around 1.86, where 3 or more goals earns us profit, 3 goals being a half stakes winner, 4 or more goals a full stakes. I think that's a great angle to take here. Southampton have flattered to deceive a lot this season, but I think they've shown over the festive period how threatening they can be. I think they'd be absolutely safe if they could finish their dinner most of the time away from trouble. But there has been an upturn in results and performance levels too. Should have beaten Palace last time out, though. Quite frustrating, really, from their perspective. Danny Ings is scoring goals for fun, really. Moussa Djenepo really lively off the bench as well. So they do have a couple of options there in attacking areas. I still wouldn't be too confident in their defensive system right now, but especially against a Spurs team. But going forward, Saints should be really confident about causing Spurs problems. Spurs against Norwich, we saw them, they were second best for large periods of that match, really hassled and harried by Norwich. Very similar to how Chelsea played against them as well. I expect Southampton to take a similar approach out of possession, really pressurising that back line, getting in the faces of the central midfield as well. And it was the eighth time in 10 away Premier League games this season where Spurs have conceded at least 2 goals, which is really not good enough. And actually, New Year's Day, I think, is the 1-year anniversary of Spurs' last away Premier League clean sheet. So, I've got very little faith in them ending that record at Southampton. Knowing how Southampton can generate chances and opportunities, and the way Spurs are giving opportunities away at the moment. Some of them quite calamity, some of them process-based. I just look at that back four and it's not convincing. They've conceded 17 goals in 10 games since Mourinho came into the club. He's looked and sounded completely exasperated by the whole situation in defence too. He's tried a couple of things. Nothing's really working there, but no one can really deny the improvements going forward, at least. Dele Alli especially. Goals is the angle. I'll try not to be too stats heavy here, but I think it's worth mentioning because they are pretty impressive. But Saints have seen overs in 7 of 10 games at St Mary's, 3.5 goals per game. BTTS landing in 8 of those 10. Spurs have seen overs in 9 of 10 away, 3.4 goals per game, and 9 of 10 away, seeing both teams score as well. Across the full season, they've combined to keep only 5 clean sheets in 40 games, scored in 34 of those. And both teams at matches are seeing over 2 expected goals from open play per game on average. And also both occupy a top 6 berth for open play, chance creation, according to expected goals as well. So we've basically got two teams who are really well equipped to generate opportunities, far from reliable at the back as well, and a market which is potentially underrating goals here. So yeah, I think get with the goals at over 2.75 goals, around 1.85, 1.86 is a great bet.
Yeah, as someone who brought Gazaniga into my fantasy team when Lloris got injured, thinking it was an absolute masterstroke, I can confirm that Spurs' lack of clean sheets is pretty frustrating. Just a quick one. I think this is probably another feather in the cap for the bet. Spurs, you talked about him being a bit frustrated with the defence. Personnel in midfield has also been a topic of some discussion. And Ndombele and Lo Celso, two players the fans have been crying out for, both starting against Norwich. We obviously don't know what the team news will be for this one, but Eriksen started as well as Ali in that game. If that's the way that Mourinho wants to approach this game, for example, Mark, would that not be another real tick in the box? Because Ndombele and Lo Celso, given what I know, and potentially I'm wrong here, offer quite a lot in terms of progressing the ball forward, good attacking midfield players from deep, but potentially compared to a Dyer and a Winks, maybe not quite as good defensively. So better on both ends if we're going for goals.
Yeah, for sure. I probably would expect a couple of changes there. I think his eyes will have been opened to the fact that his team were far too open and easy to play against by Norwich. He does like Dyer, so I expect him to come in. I just wonder whether he's going to try and transform Ndombele into a more defensive midfielder. I think that was the idea of playing him against Norwich, trying to mould him into a bit more of maybe a box-to-box kind of, almost a repeat of N'Golo Conte, really. I wonder if that's his aim, really. He's got a kind of spare berth there beside Eric Dyer if he does continue with him. Sissoko's been okay, but I think Mourinho's kind of looking at that central midfield area. He's not quite sure what he wants yet. He's been quite consistent in his approach. As I say, it's not worked just yet, so maybe that experiment will be ended after the Norwich game, and we'll see how he approaches this one. But even so, even with Eric Dyer, just the mobility there around midfield is a concern, really. And he's already jettisoned Danny Rose at left back. Ben Davies is injured as well, so Vertonghen's been playing out there at left back. He might switch to a back five, back three. It's hard to really second guess him at the moment, but whoever he plays, really, the system isn't really working.
Okay, goals in Saints and Spurs. Just having a look at the EFL, Mark, you've picked out something in the Huddersfield Stoke City game. Two teams who started the season horrendously, both made managerial changes. Huddersfield subsequently moving up the table under the Cowley brothers, and Stoke to a certain extent, but not a huge extent. They are outside the relegation zone, but only on goal difference, 21 points, with two teams below them also on 21 and the bottom team, Wigan, on 20. So this game, a bit like our Arsenal United game we spoke about first, in terms of the prices, as we record on the Matchbook site, incredibly even, which is exciting for me at least. Huddersfield 2.83 and Stoke also 2.83. So it'll be interesting to see how much these move by the time the game kicks off. The draw available at 3.1. Huddersfield plus 0, 1.98. Stoke minus 0, 1.943. Over 2.25 goals is 2.09 and the under 1.813. So what was it about this game, Mark, that really caught your eye?
Yeah, it's Huddersfield, really, Ali. They're outsiders again, as they have been for many of their matches at the moment. They're going off for big prices, home or away, basically due to their poor performance data, which has shown minimal improvement, really, under the Cowley brothers since they took charge in September's international break. There has been improvements, but if you look at the underlying data, it's not been magnificent by any stretch of the imagination. But if you look at the results and certainly performances in isolation, they have improved. Gradual improvements. They've certainly been looking to build from the back. When they took charge, Sunderland only had 1 point from 6 games. They've since earned 27 from the following 19, 7 wins, 6 draws, 5 defeats. Take out the back-to-back defeats in their first 2 games in charge. It's now only 3 defeats in 16. They've won 7 in that sequence, and they've only conceded 2 or more goals on 4 occasions as well. So they're very much being focused on being difficult to beat, building a solid base from the back. On Sunday, we saw them come from behind against Blackburn to win. The first time they'd done that in about 2 years, I think I read. And they would have been joint bottom when they arrived, but now they're 7 points clear of the drop zone. So They're certainly working their magic slowly but surely, particularly at home where they've lost once in 9. That came against Leeds, so you can't really deny them that really. Players starting to find a bit of form, and also players returning from injury, which has been massive really. They missed Jonathan Hogg on Sunday. He should be back fit and available, which is a big bonus. But Lewis O'Brien, Jayden Brown, Fraser Campbell, all back and available. Danny Cowley has been talking a lot recently about the fact the injuries that have been affecting his team. He's almost said that the worst he's ever faced in management. So to see Huddersfield come through, remain reasonably competitive in nearly every single match, and picking up points along the way has to be quite a positive outlook really for Huddersfield fans. And I don't see any reason why they should be so hefty outsiders at home against Stoke at the moment. So I think if you can get 1.77-ish, which is what I saw from the high street on Huddersfield, plus a 0.25 start, making money again if they avoid defeat at home, considering those excellent recent results, I think we'll be in a good position, because they do tend to perform against these kind of lesser lights, include the whole season really. And they've only lost 4 of 15 when excluding the top 10 from the division. And Stoke, they were there ranked bottom of the table with Huddersfield when the Counties took charge. Again, 1 point from 6. They are a danger, of course they are. They've got plenty of players in that squad who are well capable of performing, but they've been very erratic since Michael O'Neill took charge. They were definitely underperforming their data during Nathan Jones's tenure, but results-wise they have improved slightly, but been very up and down as well. And I think this is more a price play for me really than anything massively negative against Stoke. But I still can find plenty of negativities in that Stoke team, not just on the weekend where they shouldn't really would have been beaten more heavily than the 1-0 against Fulham in that first half had Jack Botland not pulled off a few great saves. Their efforts in front of goal were pretty minimal until they switched to 2 up front late on. And Ryan Shawcross was injured again in that match as well, so he's going to be unavailable. And their away form, 9 defeats and 12 in 5 games away from home under O'Neill, 4 defeats. They've conceded at least twice in 7 of 12 away. Only scored 2 or more goals twice in 12 away. And also, if you exclude the bottom 3 in the Championship this season, Stoke's record, 3 wins, 3 draws, 16 defeats. So this bet has paid out in 19 of those 22 games when you exclude the bottom 3. I know Huddersfield aren't the most exciting team to watch right now, but they are sort of in the midst of a massive rebuild. Danny Cowley's talked a lot about doing business in January, sort of getting a squad together which is competitive and can look towards the future. But I think at the moment they're going about their business quite quietly, and I think they're well capable of getting at least a point here and giving us at least a half-stakes win, if not a full.
There we go. Just for the sake of those who have been listening closely and potentially not noting things down, run me through the 3 selections with the caveat that we're recording 11:30 currently on the Monday morning, about 2 days before these games on New Year's Day. Just run us through, review your thoughts for us.
Yep, so we started with Arsenal against Manchester United. There has been a move for United in the last 24 hours. At the moment, we can get Man United plus 0.25 on the Asian handicap around 1.73, which is my preferred play. I'd back that down to 1.7. And then if you're still keen to get with United, look towards the draw no bet or the 0 Asian handicap mark around 1.9 or better. That's the angle there. In Spurs visit to Southampton, get with the goals over 2 3/4, 1.83 or bigger. I think we can get 1.86 at Matchbook right now, which is a cracking bet to me. Probably my best of the 3. And then finally, Huddersfield against Stoke. Stoke plus a quarter goal on the Asian handicap, 1.75 or larger. Okay,
well, we were 2 out of 3 on Boxing Day. Let's see how we go on New Year's Day. Just a reminder to you guys that you can place ACCAs on the Matchbook site. While it is an exchange site, you can also bundle things up together and place an ACCA if that tickles your fancy on New Year's Day, anytime really. If you head to the site, it's quite clear where you can learn more about that, where you can find out what you can and can't put into your ACCAs. But that's it from us on the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. Thank you, Mark, for joining me during this busy football and family period, and I wish you a very happy New Year.
Cheers, Ali. You too. Got a bit of a break after this. Say again?
Big New Year for you?
No, quite actually. Going down to Devon for a few days away with the girlfriend and a few friends. So, we're staying in and enjoying the football as much as I can.
Yeah, happy days. Me too. Well, happy New Year to all the listeners and viewers. Thank you for all your support across the whole of the Matchbook podcast stable, but specifically the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. We'll talk again very soon. Make sure you're following @Team Matchbook on Twitter for all updates, new episodes, etc.